Greetings, one and all. Recording is in progress. Hi, everybody. I hope you're all well. Thanks for coming and watching my little channel. I wanted to reply to a question that was sent to me, which is something I've thought about quite often as well. When Gurdjieff talks about these special tapes in the book All and Everything, is he talking about the Akashic record? Possibly. And these tapes are the Korkaptilnian fault tapes. So what are they? In the Akashic record, wherever it is meant to be the thought and action of every person is recorded throughout time. And this is what a lot of people access when they're going into maybe a trance or a meditation, where they're trying to find information. And I think to do that, you have to be a specially developed person. I don't think it just lets anybody in. I think there may be other layers coming through the other layers of realms that may hold certain information, perhaps misinformation, that one can go to as well. And I wonder if some people get caught up in that. There's like the spiritual realm, the astral realm, but I don't think the Akashic record is part of either of them myself. And the Akashic record, like I say, holds everything. And I think this is what perhaps people like, well, I know Rudolf Steiner says that's what he was accessing when he was getting his ideas of, sorry, I forgot to turn my phone off, when he was accessing, for example, the life of the Christ, because he writes about that in various books and lectures and gives a kind of, I'm not saying it's a different version of the Gospels, but because he's gone and was there, he was able to witness what was occurring there. And Gurdjieff talks about this himself, I believe, with J.G. Bennett. He helped J.G. Bennett go, I think it was to the Christ, maybe it was the Last Supper. I should have looked that up before I came here, but I didn't know I was going in that direction. Took him there, that we could take our astral bodies to these places. If we're developed to a certain degree, we can access other places. But going back to the tapes, these are talked about or discussed in All and Everything, page 293, and this is Beelzebub's fourth sojourn on the earth. And they're talking about being ideas and how they're materialized. And he talks about how a teleogenuria is a materialized idea. So if I just read it first, then I can go through it. I must first tell you that I learned about this history thanks to what are called teleogenuras, Teleogehinooras, because he's discussing how he knows about certain histories. So I must first tell you that I learned about this history thanks to what are called teleogenuras, which are at present in the atmosphere also of that planet Earth of yours. As you probably do not yet know exactly what a teleogenura is, try to transubstantiate in the corresponding parts of your common presence the information concerning this cosmic actualization. So he's discussing how it's a cosmic actualization, but it's also surrounding the earth by the sounds of it, like an ether around the earth. And he goes on to say, a teleogenera is a materialized idea or thought which, after its arising, exists almost eternally. So it never stops. It's always there. We can always access it. Teleogenuras can be formed from such a quality of being contemplation as only those free brain beings have and can actualize, who have coated their higher being bodies in their presences and who have brought the perfecting of the reason of their higher being part up to the degree of the sacred Mot for tire, which he never really discusses further in this bit, but you learn what that is throughout the book. But he's talking here about it's a quality of being contemplation, and this is what all this work is about. We want quality work on ourselves, because that quality work will help us discover our being, reason, objective reason, and such like. So he's saying here, I think it can only be accessed through a certain meditation of a person that's obviously worked upon themselves. And he goes on to say, a little cough, and the sequential series of being ideas materialized in this way concerning any given event are called Korkaptilnian thought tapes. And Korkaptilnian is spelled Korkaptilnian. It seems that the said Korkaptilnian thought tapes concerning the history of the arising of the learned society Akudam, which is one of the sacred societies, were, as I found out much later, deliberately fixed by a certain eternal individual, Ashuchunan, now a saint, who became coated in the common presence of a free-brain being named Tatatus, who arose on your planet on the continent of Atlantis, and who had existed there 4 centuries before the second great Transparnian perturbation, which was the Atlantis epic. So he's talking about, this guy was coated in the common presence of a free brain being. So he's come down, this saint, and become incarnated on this world as Tetitos, which is what I think he's saying here. And I know some people might disagree with me on that. Maybe he just took over that person, kind of put his presence inside him and started, which we hear stories of, people often have, we have many examples of this kind of thing, of people being taken over by somebody else. For example, I'm going to mention the theosophist William Quan Judge. When he was a child, he got very ill and almost died. And during that process of almost dying, he believes, I think it was an Indian guru, took him over and became part of him and lived within him and helped him with his development himself. And he went on, he was one of the founders of the Theosophical Society. But I think Gurdjieff is saying that's not how we want that to work. We need to develop ourselves and work on ourselves so that we are our true sovereign selves, and it's not somebody else inside us leading or guiding us. We don't really want to be invoking anybody into us. We want to be doing this ourselves, being our own sovereignty and our own selves, our own true self. We're developing ourself to become the real I. These Korkaptilnian thought tapes are never destroyed as long as the given planet exists, which is in what is called the tempo of movement of the prime arising. And they are subject to none of those transformations from any cosmic causes whatsoever, to which all other cosmic substances and cosmic crystallizations are periodically subject. We're all affected by the cosmic rays coming from other planets. We're subject to what goes on this planet. But he's saying that these tapes last for as long as planet Earth does. And so they're going to have the whole history of planet Earth in them. And maybe that's what Gurdjieff accessed, so that he could write all and everything and give us the history of humanity in that book. Okay, it's from the perspective of Beelzebub coming down. Maybe Beelzebub really did exist, and this is, a proper biography. And Gurdjieff showed in the story of him and J.G. Bennett that he could access other times and be part. I don't know if they actually were physically there. If it was just their astral body, they maybe couldn't interact with what was going on there. And the Bennett and Gurdjieff incident is talked about in the I Teach How to Cook But Not What to Cook book by Ben Bennett, J.G. Bennett's son, which is all about J.G. Bennett and his life. And And he goes on to say, however long a time may have already passed, every free brain being in whose presence there has been acquired the ability to enter into the being state called Korkaptilnian contemplation can perceive and cognize the text of these Korkaptilnian thought tapes. So another reason to work on ourselves is to reach that state. Shall I read it again? The Korkaptilnian contemplation. If we can access, if we can do that with ourselves, we can then access these tapes, which to me does sound like the Akashic record. Why do we want to do that? Would we want to do that? It is an interesting thing to be able to access so that we can learn of what really happened in the past. Does it also hold the future? Don't know. But I wonder if it can do that, if this is why some people are able to predict the future, because they can go into this. Is this the kind of thing that Nostradamus was able to access through his scrying? Now, he says he did his scrying through a bowl of water. And maybe that is another way of doing it, going into a mirror or a reflection. You can, if you put yourself in this contemplation, you can then access this text, as he calls it here, the tapes. What are they? Are they actual, when you enter them, do you hear other people's thoughts that are caught up in that atmosphere, them tapes? Or do you see everything relayed, like watching the TV? But you're there in perhaps your astral body or a special body that you've developed from this contemplation that allows you access to that. Does your mind go up there so you can take in what's going on? It's all very, very interesting stuff. And if anybody's done that, I'd love to hear from you and hear more. You know, this is one of the things of doing this kind of work. It does shows you access to other things that are not of the norm, because this is all a bit, people would say would be a bit supernatural. But doing this work, we're trying to take ourselves out of the norm of, you know, like the secular world and what the norm is and the sheep want us to live in, because maybe this is the normal of accessing these kind of things, but it seems to be only for certain people. I could understand how some people who aren't trained but didn't manage to access it could get quite caught up in all that and be, you know, it's like when people want to learn about their past lives and they just continue on and then they get fixated with their past life instead of living this life. But if, let's take Rudolf Steiner, for example, he's doing that and going up there and finding a more cosmological idea of the Christ life on this earth and Jesus, the man on earth. Because Steiner says Jesus didn't become the Christ until the baptism by John the Baptist. And he was able to bring forth by doing that what he calls the fifth gospel, which is, I think, a more esoteric understanding of what the Christ force is and teaching us what we should be preparing ourselves for and what we should be doing. So I can see how it's handy to do that kind of thing. Maybe we could do it to access our past lives, to perhaps understand what we are in this life and, you know, the karma repercussions that are coming from past lives. But we might also understand or learn from it the truth of what this universe is all about. I don't know. These are all just questions I'm putting out there of why would we want to access the Akashic records or these tapes, as Gurdjieff calls them. So I think answering my friend's question on the email, or, you know, the subscriber, thank you very much for sending and asking that. I think it's a very important thing to consider, of that everything's recorded, because also it helps you with your life. Everything you're doing is going to be put on them tapes. What do you want written about yourself? What story do you want up there for when people are accessing you? Hopefully they're not. Hopefully people aren't. You know, but maybe you will turn out to be some wonderful guru who can help lead humanity on the right path, and people will be interested in who you are. So they, you know, you want to make sure you've got the right story there. Though we've all done things in the past, it's how we've transformed and the person we've become that's important. And people can learn from how people who might have led a bit of a fallen life was able to turn it around and turn into a more realized individual. Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to say. So as we know, this book, All and Everything, the objectively, let me put my glasses on. The objectively impartial criticism of the life of man, or Beelzebub's tales to his grandson, explains everything. And I keep recommending everyone to read it. You know, I keep coming across certain bits that I didn't understand before. And I think it's important to try and understand who we are in this world, how we're trying to spiritualize ourselves and develop our souls so that we can go forward, being part of the whole cosmos, working with the divine source and elevate his sorrows. So thank you all for watching. Bless you all. Love and peace. Till next time.